afternoon, everyone. My name is Donna Christian. I'm the Executive Director of the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce, I welcome our returning legislative update attendees and would like to invite our new attendees to join us for more chamber events in the future. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to our legislative update today. We're meeting here virtually, and I hope next year we can actually meet in person. We're very grateful to the wonderful sponsors that stepped forward to support this update. I would like to say thank you to Indiana Ground Racing and Casino, Knopf Insulation, NSG Group, Giant FM, First Bank of Shelbyville, Rush Shelby Energy, Shelby County Development Corporation, McNeely Law, Milestone Contractors, Rotary Club of Shelbyville, and Plymate. A special thank you goes out to our presenting sponsor, MHP Foundation. We're fortunate to have the support of so many sponsors, and please join me in thanking them. Now I'd like to introduce you to Angela Gill. Angela is the Executive Director of the MHP Foundation. The MHP Foundation supports major health partners by cultivating relationships with donors and encouraging charitable gifts. These gifts are used to further advance the care provided by major health partners. Prior to her work with the foundation, you probably saw her here in Shelby County because she held roles with the Shelby County Health Clinic as the Community Health Coordinator and as Program Administrator for the Blue River Community Foundation. She's a graduate of the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy and received her bachelor's from Ball State in Muncie. Angela, would you please take it from here?
Well, sure. Thank you, Donna. What a lovely introduction. I appreciate it. And it's great to see all of your little smiling faces on the screen today. I really miss people. So this is a fun event, and I can't wait to meet you in person, Donna. I also appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about MHP and some of the things that are going on with us as the presenting sponsor. People have a lot of questions about COVID, of course. I can tell you what we've seen. In Shelby County, there are about 5,000 documented cases since the thing started. We think there's probably a little more than that because not everybody gets tested, and some people are asymptomatic too. We've had a total inpatient hospitalizations of 427. What we kind of see with our patients that are hospitalized with COVID, the average age is 63. Pretty even Steven on male or female, 48.8% male, 51.2% female. Generally, well, not generally, just under half, 45.8% have a high BMI greater than 30. Many of them have diabetes, 41.4%, and many of them have had hypertension, 63.3%. History of smoking, 42%. History of chronic lung disease, 44.9%. So take care of yourself. It really, if you don't, it's hard on you, especially as you get older, if you do get COVID. The average length of stay for our COVID positive patients has been 9 days. Or the usual stay for a patient at MHP is about 4.5 days. So the people who are coming in with COVID are very, very sick. It's interesting this is just a little math fact that I like to look at. Average length of stay was 9 days and 427 inpatient hospitalizations. That's 3,843 patient days, or roughly 10 years. So that's kind of a different kind of way to think about it. About 9.1% of our hospitalized COVID patients did pass away, and the total death rate is 1.6% out of that 5,000 cases. The average age of patients who did not make it was 81, and we've given some medications. It was really scary in the spring because we didn't really have treatment for COVID. We didn't really know what to do with it, but we have treatment now. So it's still scary, but it's not nearly as scary as it was before. 9.3% of our patients received oh boy, here we go. Tocilizumab, which is an inflammatory, anti-inflammatory drug that is frequently used with arthritis, and there is some inflammation with COVID. We've used remdesivir on 58.9% of our patients, and bamlanivimab on 8%, or 475 people received the 8% of our total positive received the bamlanivimab. And early on, we did use the convalescent plasma, which is where you take the plasma from someone who has had COVID and give it to someone who's sick with it at the current time. We 4.7% received that. We are hopeful that everyone who wants a vaccination will have had a vaccination in the fall, so 75 to 80%. The vaccine that we're giving out now at MHP, we have Pfizer, and they are giving the Moderna vaccine at the Shelby County Health Department. Those seem to be working, the early studies show those seem to be working against the British strain. Doesn't work quite as well against the South African strain, but it does prevent like super serious disease. You still get sick, but don't get quite as sick. So that's, that's comforting. And it just depends what's going to happen. We don't really know how long the current vaccines that we're receiving are going to be good for. We're hopeful that over time, and as we get more and more people vaccinated and we reach that herd immunity, it'll just be like getting your flu shot. Every year you probably get a COVID vaccine. It just depends. There's a lot we don't know, but that's what we hope. And I really, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people that I talk to at the hospital, that's kind of what we expect. And that's what we hope for. So that's a little COVID update, and things are turning, they're getting better. Our incident command team is not meeting as frequently, because it's just settling down, and keep your fingers crossed. I hope that continues. Let's look at some happy news. The MHP Community Health and Wellness Center is scheduled for completion July 1st this year. You may have seen it out there on the corner of State Road 9 and Intelleplex Drive. It is a beautiful facility. I cannot wait to get in there. 80,000 square feet. It will house the YMCA, Shelby County Senior Services, and Dr. Greg Howard will have an MHP lifestyle medicine practice out there. In the very excited that it's going to have a warm water pool. There's a fitness center, a gymnasium, indoor walking track, and then various program rooms. And then, of course, office space and program rooms for senior services and the lifestyle medicine practice office. Let's see. Other things that have been going on at MHP, we have a new wound care center, which has been very well received. They're super busy. If you have a wound that won't heal, frequently that's a result of diabetes, but it can be other things too. And it really interferes with your quality of life. And they're doing great work at the Wound Care Center with that. We've partnered with the Suburban Health Organization, which is kind of a coalition of hospitals like us in the suburban areas to expand home health services. A lot of people, they don't really need to be in the hospital. They're going to do better if they're at home, so we can provide more home care services to those folks. We have a new nephrologist that is a doctor who specializes in kidneys. Kidneys are, this is a little fun fact for you, kidneys are made up of cells called nephrons, and that's where the word nephrology comes from. And our new nephrologist is Dr. Mohandran. We're offering full-time urology now with Dr. Stephen Kim and David Pavey, a nurse practitioner. 2 new physicians in the family practice, Dr. Capadonico and Dr. Jared Lincoln. Dr. Lincoln is a Shelby County native who's come back to practice here. Dr. Gemma in general surgery, Dr. Candela in podiatric surgery, and Dr. Catella will be coming to MHP once a week to provide rheumatology services. So in spite of, some challenges this year, we've been able to continue doing good things at MHP. Just a little blurb about the foundation, and then we'll get on with our program. We provide support to MHP and our patients. Last year, we were able to provide support in the amount of $809,495. 550 of that went toward construction on that medical center. We're about done with that. And $100,000 toward the nephrology center. The remaining was used for, we have projects that our employees have designed to help them do their jobs better. We spent some on that. Prescription assistance, support for oncology patients, general family and patient support, COVID-19 relief, education, food insecurity, and insurance premium assistance. So all that, it's a big variety of things. I feel like it's all really worthwhile. I know it's all really worthwhile, and it's all been made possible just from the support of donors and this really great, generous community. So thank you for that, and thank you for the time to talk about MHP. Now let's see, I get to tell you how the order of the meeting is going to work. Each of our guests will have 10 minutes to speak. And then if you have questions or comments, there is a chat box down at the bottom of the screen. You can enter those in the chat box and that'll be monitored. And some questions have already been submitted to the chamber, and those will be posted during the question and answer time as well. We're going to start with Representative Sean Eberhart. He'll have 10 minutes to speak. He is a Republican member of the Indiana House of Representatives, representing the 57th District since 2007. He has served on the Shelby County Council from 1998 to 2006, and its president from 2003 to 2006. He has also served on the County Council District. He is on some legislative committees in the Senate. He is a member of Environmental Affairs Committee and the Financial Institutions Committee, as well as Public Policy, and he chairs the Natural Resources Clinic. He is also very active in our community. He is a coach for the Blue River Soccer Association, a member and former president of the Shelbyville Rotary Club, associate trustee and member of Hope Moravian Church, a member of the Animal Shelter in Shelby County, a member of the Fiber Optic Appointing Board in Shelby County, a member of the Major Hospital Appointing Board, and a member of the Shelby County Health Department. Last but not least, in his spare time, he owns and operates Advantage Tool Rental, which is right here in Shelby County. And we moved a piano at my house a few weeks ago, and he has a nifty little tool there. So just have that in your back pocket. You can move a great big piano effortlessly. So just remember that in case you ever have that need. So Sean, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Well, thank you. I'm getting a little reverberation back here in the office, but can you hear me okay, Susan? Angela, can you hear me okay? Okay. Well, thank you. I need to help you update my little background information. A little bit of it's outdated, but that's okay. So this is my 15th session, and to say that this one has been unusual is probably an understatement. With the pandemic, we've chosen to meet not in our normal chamber, but to meet in a large conference room in another governmental building, to try to get the spacing that we need and to take the precautions that all of you have taken in your jobs. And so it's been tough. We have a minimum number of rooms that we can use to meet. And that's made it very difficult to schedule committees. We have folks that want to testify have to do so in another room virtually, and that's been difficult as well. So it's been a very, very tough year, but we're doing okay. We're about at the halfway point. We've got Monday would be our last day in the House, and that would be the third reading deadline on bills, on House bills, before those bills move over to the Senate, to give them a chance to move our bills through their system, and then we do the same with the Senate bills. And so we're real close to a halfway point. This is a budget year. We will be voting on the budget on Monday, and then, as I mentioned, that bill will then move to the Senate, and they'll have a chance to take a stab at the budget. But that's the only constitutional duty we have, is the budget. And so that's been our priority up to this point. It hasn't precluded us from doing some other things, but the budget is our priority. I will tell you that this will be the sixth budget that House Republicans have put together since I've been in office, and it will be a structurally balanced budget with an appropriate amount of surplus, including a record number of dollars to go to public education. That's always been our priority. We have more money that's spent on education than any other line item in our budget. And so once again, we'll have a record amount of funding for education, and we do a lot of other good things in the budget. Hopefully we'll have some questions on that as we move forward, but that's our priority. We've had some bills that have already moved completely through the system. We've done it a little bit different this year, where instead of waiting at the halfway point for all bills to flip over, we've actually had one bill move completely through the system and was signed by the governor yesterday, and that is Senate Bill 1, which deals with civil immunity due to the pandemic, due to COVID. And what that would do, that would provide civil immunity for businesses and other organized activities to give them insulation from lawsuits that have to do with COVID. Now, if there's any gross negligence or wanton misconduct, that certainly wouldn't be covered. But we're in very different times now, and we don't want businesses that have tried to keep people employed, keep businesses open, and we don't want those businesses and other activities to be open to lawsuits if they've taken proper precautions due to COVID. So that bill got signed by the governor yesterday. It was a very important bill. There's a reason that it's Senate Bill 1. That's the first bill that was filed on the Senate side, and I'm sure Senator Crider and Senator Leising will speak on that. At the same time, Angela, we have House Bill 1002, which is similar to Senate Bill 1, which will protect healthcare providers during the pandemic, and actually during any type of disaster or emergency, to give them protections to ensure that they're not open to civil penalties or civil lawsuits, again with exceptions for gross negligence. So those are two bills that, normally we would not have had those bills except for the pandemic and what's going on. And so that's that plays in the whole unusual session that we've had. Just to touch on a couple other bills, and I'll turn it over to one of the senators. We have a bill that's received quite a bit of notice and media coverage, and that's House Bill 1369, which is what we call lawful carry. Some would call it constitutional carry, but this bill would allow law-abiding citizens, adults, those that are proper persons, not somebody that's precluded from having a gun under federal or state law, but would allow them to carry a handgun without obtaining permission from the government. Some would argue, including me, that constitutional rights such as the right for self-protection and right to bear arms should not come with a price, should not have to be, you should not have to get permission and pay a fee to the government to exercise that right. So that bill will be up on third reading on Monday, and it'll be interesting on how the Senate treats that bill. And then also, I had a bill that I just passed off the floor this week, which was House Bill 1224, which dealt with hemp. And 2 years ago, I carried a bill that put in place the framework for our hemp industry and gave our farmers a chance to diversify and to choose a different crop than your traditional soybeans or corn, and would allow them to grow hemp. The federal government took it off the Controlled Substance Act back in 2018, and then we moved forward with the bill to legalize it here in our state. And what my bill would now do would be to take away the ban on the craft hemp flower, which is one part of that plant that was deemed illegal back in 2019 by the General Assembly, which I thought was a mistake. And my bill would now legalize that part of the plant, which is the most lucrative part of the plant. It's something that folks smoke that delivers CBD to the body. It's a preferable way of doing it for some folks. And again, it's the most lucrative part of the plant. 39 other states allow it. And this bill would allow our farmers, our retailers, and our constituents and consumers to enjoy the product and grow the product no different than those 39 other states. And so that bill passed out of the House this week and will now move over to the Senate. Senator Mark Messmer is carrying that bill for me, and hopefully I'll get a warm reception on that side. But that just gives you a little bit of taste. I prefer to leave it open to more time for questions, and so I'll stop with my comments here. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, the agenda says that Senator Jean Leising is up next. She is a Republican member of the Indiana Senate, representing the 42nd District from 1989 to 1996, and from 2008 to the present. She was Assistant Majority Whip from 1992 to 1996, born in Batesville, Indiana, and graduated from Sunman Consolidated High School. She is a farm owner, travel agent, and a retired nurse. Her current legislative committees include holding the chair for agriculture, member for commerce and technology, education and career development, health and provider services, utilities, and ranking member for natural resources. Her civic activities include a member of the board of directors for the National Corn Growers Association, a member of the Catholic Community Foundation, a member of Indiana Farm Bureau, Oldenburg Academy School Board, St. Louis Catholic Church, and president of the Indiana Corn Growers Association. Plus, she has won numerous awards during her career. She was awarded the Legislator of the Year by the Indiana Farm Bureau. Indiana Manufacturers Association gave her the 100% Award for Legislative Excellence, and the Indiana Volunteer Firefighters Association presented her with Legislator of the Year, and that is just to name a few. So congratulations, Senator Leising, and we can't wait to hear from you.
Well, thank you guys for all participating today. I'm sorry that we can't be there in person and have your normal annual luncheon that we do this legislative updates, but hey, this is second best. But the good news is that the COVID cases and deaths are certainly declining. And because I am on the health committee, I watch that every day, and I appreciated the update at the beginning of the Zoom call from Major. But I think the important thing for all of us to share with our friends and relatives and even our non-friends, when they have the opportunity to get the vaccine, I would strongly encourage them to do so. Because I was eligible by age, I've had both shots of the Pfizer vaccine and had absolutely no side effects at all. And I would strongly encourage everyone when they can to participate. Unfortunately, we have had 11,898 deaths according to Department of Health statistics today. About half of those deaths did occur to individuals who were residents of long-term care facilities when they actually got COVID. And we know that it's been very, very hard for people over the age of 80. And then the next group hit would be those between 70 and 80. So, it's been a tough issue. And I think all of us are glad to see that the numbers of both hospitalizations and deaths have declined dramatically in the last couple of weeks, so much so that they're down to the level of what they were in the summer. So I think that's all good. So let me move on though to, I know Sean mentioned, we have two big responsibilities in the long session of the legislature, which is from the first week in January till the end of April. And one of those is the 2-year budget, which starts in the House. So I actually haven't even seen the budget yet, but I know that Sean and our representatives have been working hard at it. The second thing we have a responsibility to do is redistricting. And it's my understanding that we are going to have to wait for the census results from the federal government, and that we may not have those census results for several more months. So at that time, then we will be doing the redistricting. So now, but what else is going on at the legislature besides those two things? It seems like there's always some really important issues. And one of the things I want to just touch on, I know many of you participated in completing my survey a month or so ago that was both either mailed to you or online. And I can tell you that one of the most important things that popped out on that survey to me was that knowing that the budgets could be tight this year with less revenue coming in, 88% of the people that responded said cut spending. And only 12% said raise taxes. So I think that's gave me a message that if I have any tough votes to make, I best not be raising taxes, and hopefully we can figure out how to make the money work. Sean mentioned that a significant portion of our money goes to K-12 education. In the last budget that we're currently operating under, 51% of the money went for K-12 education. So we'll see how this new budget fares. One of the things that I told our appropriations chairman a couple of weeks ago was that if there was any extra pot of gold, that we ought to reward the schools that have tried hard to have kids in the classroom. Because I know that many of the schools in my 7-county district have tried to do so, and some of them have been very successful at doing so. But we know that some places in this state, there's not been that effort. And being on the education committee, I'm seriously concerned about the education loss incurred by those students that have been, in some cases, almost totally virtual since last March. So that is seriously a concern. But probably some of the most important bills, Sean already mentioned, Senate Bill 1, which I know there are lots of business people listening on this call, and Senate Bill 1 actually is the immunity bill that prevents, from civil tort liability for damages arising from COVID. And that particular bill has passed and is retroactive to March 1 of 2020. You normally don't see that kind of retroactivity in a bill, and it will not sunset until December 31st of 24. But I think it's an important piece of legislation. Obviously, many people thought that because it was given Senate Bill 1, the number, and it does not cover for gross negligent or willful or wanton misconduct. So just for any of you that are wondering, oh my gosh, what are they doing? I think that that's important for you to know. The Senate is now, and we'll be voting actually on Tuesday of this next week for Senate Bill 407, which is the widespread emergency bill. And I know that my legislative assistant emailed a copy of the flow chart on that, but I don't know if the people can see that chart or not, but yep, it looks like maybe it is popping up on this screen. And I would just tell you that, first of all, what this is having to do with the fact that we are getting lots of concerns expressed from constituents about the continuation of emergency orders through this pandemic, and perhaps the way they've been handled, that, for instance, some small businesses have been hit much harder than maybe the larger box stores, for instance, okay? And so the legislature feels like we've not been involved in that issue as perhaps we should have been. And so this bill, which I expect will pass, actually gives the governor 30 days when he first declares a state of emergency. And then if he intends to extend the emergency, another 15 days, but there'll be a legislative group that would be involved in those recommendations. if the governor extends the order and the legislature is in session or calls a special session, then there can be legislative action or inaction. But I think the big thing is that it can expire and not go on like it has. I believe that some of the legislative orders or executive orders, I should say, executive orders have gone on now and been renewed perhaps as many as 13 times. And so we know that it has been a real source of frustration, even though everybody has wanted to keep the COVID issue under wraps. We know that there are many businesses throughout, at least certainly in my 7 counties, that have suffered severe financial loss and perhaps have even been forced to close. And so I think we all want to see as quick a recovery as possible as people are vaccinated and we have some natural immunity from those who have already had the disease. And hopefully we can achieve what is known as herd immunity. So that's probably all I need to say about that particular executive order issue, but I think it's important for people to know it's being worked on. There is also another bill, Senate Bill 5, which is going to deal with local health orders during emergencies. And it has varied greatly within my 7 counties, where some health officers have declared a lot tougher restrictions than others. And as a result, it has impacted everything from school closure to to you name it. I mean, it has impacted, obviously, again, businesses. Last summer, it impacted swimming pools, in fact. So I think that now what's going to happen is that if there is a problem within a particular county, there'll be an appeals process where they can appeal to the local health department. And in most of our counties, it would be then up to the county commissioners to review what that local health order is. One of the bills that I just want to quickly tell you about, I know it's another issue related to health, but we've had a lot of concerns expressed by individual citizens about not being able to see their loved ones that are in long-term care facilities. And so I had authored a bill in regard to nursing home visitation, but also a couple other senators did. And so I actually, the bill that is moving is Senate Bill 202, which I am a co-author of on that bill. And it's going to establish language for a compassionate care program and essential caregiver program. So hopefully if this bill passes and we would see another upswing in the pandemic or even in the future, that we would make sure that a person in the nursing home has that designated essential caregiver that can come visit them as long as they meet the protocols of the nursing home. And then also we had people that were perhaps dying of cancer, had no COVID at all, but had nobody to be with them. And it seems pretty heartless. And so we are trying to figure out how all that is going to pan out. But I think that this bill, Senate Bill 202, will receive action in the House. I know it's sailed through the Senate. So I know that there's so much to talk about, but I too want to leave time for questions. So I perhaps should cut it off at this moment, and I will be able to answer as many questions as possible. I know there's a lot of education issues out there as well. And since I chair the Agriculture Committee, we've had some significant agricultural legislation, everything from Board of Animal Health legislation to pesticide regulation. And those bills have actually both passed the Senate and are on the way to the House for action. So thanks very much for listening and for participating today.
Thank you, Senator Leising. Now I will introduce State Senator Michael Crider. He has an impressive background. Michael Crider is a Republican member of the Indiana Senate representing the 28th District, where he has served since 2012. He previously served as Director of Law Enforcement for the Indiana Department of Natural Resources from 2006 to 2010. He attended the Police Management at the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy and attended the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. He is current legislative committees. He's a member of Appropriations, Health and Provider Services, Rules and Legislative Procedure. He is Chair of Homeland Security and Transportation and Ranking Member of Veterans Affairs and the Military. He has been employed as the Security Manager, Disaster Preparedness Coordinator at Hancock Regional Hospital and the Director of Law Enforcement Conservation Officer for the Department of Natural Resources. Welcome, Senator Crider.
Thank you. It's always good to be with you folks. As Senator Leising said, I always look forward to the luncheon and the conversation that we have. Hopefully soon we'll have this behind us, maybe even by the second meeting that you have scheduled. The good thing about going last is most of the major bills have already been covered. And so I'll just tell you a little bit about how the session has gone so far. I was the co-chair of the Legislative Continuity Committee that really looked at how we would conduct our business during this legislative session. And so I, in particular, am pleased that, at least to this point, we've been able to do business without having a super spreader type event that you read about within the legislative session. It has created challenges, as Representative Eberhart outlined when he spoke. The fact that the people presenting testimony on bills are not in the same room with you is really a challenge for the committee members. We've been told that hopefully that will change when we come back after the break and we can start allowing one person at a time to come in the room as they testify. So that will be a definite improvement. This session, between the House and the Senate, there were approximately 1,000 bills, just less than 1,000 bills that were filed. With the challenges of the session and the need for sanitizing between witnesses and the challenge of sanitizing the committee rooms, it really has kind of narrowed the time that we have to consider bills that are assigned to our committees. And so I think while in a typical legislative session, there are about 1,200 bills filed, and about 200 of those actually make it to the governor's desk to be signed into law. We probably will see a slight reduction in the overall number of bills that are successful. As Senator Leising and Representative Eberhart both said, we are seeing success in moving bills, and I in particular am grateful that most of the issues that I personally filed, I've worked a lot on issues related to mental health and addiction, and also the issue of sexual assault type issues. And so I'm grateful that we're seeing success. I will be heavily involved as a member of the Appropriations Committee in looking at the budget as it comes across. We'll start our hearings with the state agencies probably the first week after we're back. We'll hold a series of hearings so we can hear from agency heads about their budget priorities. And then we'll really start having those long meetings after the regular legislative session is completed for the day, where we as a committee sit down and start trying to evaluate what the Senate's priorities are within the budget that the House has prepared. And so we're looking at a really busy second half of the session. The budget, it really is the session where most of the legislators kind of save up their issues that they know have some kind of fiscal impact to the budget. And because of the budget situation and the uncertainty, we have lowered the limits that typically the thresholds that throw issues to appropriations committee for evaluation to anything that's $100,000 or more. And so that means even more issues than normal will be recommitted to our committee, and we'll have to evaluate how those work within the overall budget. We are probably within a few days of certainly that we'll know what bills moved from the House Monday evening, and anything that hasn't moved will die. And for the Senate, we'll see what has moved by Tuesday. Monday will be second reading deadline, and so anything that does not move on Monday, if it hasn't already moved out of the chamber, then of course it starts to die. And then Tuesday we'll have our third reading deadline, and so you will know pretty quickly whether the issues that you're watching and that you're concerned about have actually moved. I think the thing that's often challenging about the legislative process is when bills start being published, they're filed and published, all the different advocacy groups start engaging and sending information and emails about bills that very likely will not even move. But that's really the process. And so it's a difficult process. It's probably a good thing that it's difficult to move legislation all the way through, because if not, we would have laws about just about anything that you can imagine. And so there are some big issues that are out there. We're receiving a lot of emails about several bills. And I think maybe I'll just stop and allow for questions, because some of those bills that we're hearing about may be things that are on folks' minds from your area in Shelby County. And so it's again, thanks for having us. It's good to be with you.
Okay, thank you. All three of you had great things to tell us. I think we're all updated on several items. I just want to thank the sponsors again. And always remember to shop local. I need to say that before we start the questions. Okay, the first one came through email. And I don't know how you want to answer this because there's several bills in this question. I would like to know the status on the following education bills. Senate bills 1, 124, 412, 413, and 1005. And then they go on to write especially 412 and 413. And then they're interested in the House bills 1002, 1005, and 108. So sorry, you probably need to look those up.
I can speak to Senate Bill 412 and 413. Senate Bill 412 has passed out of the Education Committee with a vote of 9-4 and was recommitted to appropriations. So I'm not certain what happened to that yesterday.
It did not move.
Did it move or not?
No, it did not move. Chairman Mishler decided that he would take that bill and hold it and contemplate the fiscal aspects of that as part of the budget.
Okay, and then Senate Bill 413 actually has passed out of both the Senate Education Committee and the appropriations as well, I believe.
Yes.
But it will not be voted on the floor probably until Tuesday. And what were the other Senate bills that you mentioned?
Okay, there were Senate bills 1 and 124, and then 1005.
Okay, well, Senate Bill 1 actually is the one that, Sean, did you say that was even signed by the governor? I know it's
Yes.
gone through the,
Senate Bill 1, the civil immunity bill.
yes.
Yeah,
Has
the
it
governor
been signed?
signed it. Governor signed that yesterday.
Okay, so that one is law, and that's the immunity bill that gives people some protection from lawsuits, but not frivolous things, you know, I mean, not things that are actually legitimate, I guess. So anyway, and the other one that you mentioned was?
124 has passed the Senate and is at the House for consideration.
Okay. Then we've got the House bills, Sean, 1002, 1005, and 108.
Okay, we just talked about 1002. 1108 is the Student Learning Recovery Grant Program, and that passed overwhelmingly out of the House, and it's on its way to the Senate. And I'm assuming that will get a good reception on their side. And then 1005 is expanding the school choice scholarship program, increasing the income, or raising the income eligibility threshold for school choice scholarships. That passed the House as well, and that's going to be in front of the Senate in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Now I'm going to move over to some questions that were posted in the chat. I have some concern with House Bill 1381 regarding the approval of solar and wind projects. Knowing it has moved to the Senate, my concern is that it removes local control, which would otherwise rest with the Plan Commission and the Council. This change would eliminate the oversight of the locals who are closer to the local issue. Also, local requirements may be more appropriate than the state standards that would be applied across the board.
Well, I'll take that first, since that's a House bill. That's House Bill 1381. And it's a tough discussion. It's a balance that's going to have to be discussed between what belongs at the state level and what belongs at the county level. I will tell you that, you know, our statewide energy distribution, affordability, and reliability is a state issue. You just need to look no further than what's happening in Texas. And part of that discussion we need to have is the renewable portion of it, which is what this bill deals with, which is wind and solar. That has to be part of the discussion. You know, it's the economies have improved for renewables. The costs have come down. The discussion is here and has to be made. I voted in favor of this bill, despite some consternation from some of my constituents, and I understand their concerns. But I want this discussion to move, and I want us to have it in the Senate as well. Nothing may happen from it, but I think the discussion needs to move forward. I think there is some misinformation on this bill. Local control doesn't get totally taken away in this bill. The county's authority to deny projects, reasonably deny a project is still retained to some certain degree in this bill. So I think it needs to be, if this bill moves and if it passes, it does need work. And I think we need to come up with a balance between the local level and the state level. But energy, this whole energy discussion has to happen. It has to happen, and it's a state issue. And so that's the reason I supported the bill. I understand, again, some of the concerns that folks have on this bill, but the Senate's listen, our process is a long process, and the Senate will have their chance to take a look at this bill, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
Okay. House Bill 1337, and another bill that deals with local planning and zoning, specifically the BZA. This would add a layer to the process that could cost both time and money to the petitioner. My concern is that the BZA has an area of expertise that a legislative body would not possess.
Yeah, hang on, I'm looking at that, Bill, if you could.
It's 1337.
Yeah, I don't believe that bill is moved. I'm trying to look it up, but
It shows the last action was on the 18th and
Okay.
it was amended.
okay, that bill then would be, it's coming up for third reading and for final discussion on Monday. If that bill, if Mike is correct on that, which I'm having a hard time bringing it up, but yeah, there is, and what this bill does, it deals with the BZA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, I believe, and what this bill would do is if you're denied at that point, instead of the petitioner or the business going to hire an attorney and to take something to court, that this would allow the legislative body, which would be the city council or the county council, to weigh in on a final decision. I have a little concern about that just because the expertise, I've served on the county council for 8 years, and the expertise is certainly not on that, in that body as far as what's happening at when it deals with zoning. And so I've got a little bit of issue. I'm anxious to hear the discussion on Monday, and I'm kind of reserving my vote for that point in time.
Okay, I will tell you there's 4 others that had mentioned in the post that they shared those same concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Next question I'm going to read that was emailed to us. What, if anything, is being done to build infrastructure for rural high-speed internet?
Well, I will take a stab at that. We have actually 3 broadband bills that have passed out of the Senate Utilities Committee and will be considered here yet. Likely Senator Crider. I don't know that we've actually, one of them was Houchins and one was Zay's and one was Baldwin's. And
So
maybe
the Baldwin's is on, I think Baldwin's is on third reading, and we passed the other 2 out of appropriations yesterday.
Okay, so there is a big effort. Everyone recognized the need for broadband prior to the pandemic, okay? And I think when kids were all forced to go home last spring from school, it really brought it to light. And because a lot of their parents were in settings where their office suddenly became their home as well. I've had a lot of people talk to me about it because I represent all or parts of 7 rural counties, a lot of which the rural areas have no broadband. In fact, my home, I use my cell phone, okay? That's it. And whatever I can pull up because I live in the country. But I think, the reality is it's a very expensive project, to try to figure out how to get it everywhere in the state. And I think what they're trying to figure out is how do we best spend grant dollars? And I believe Senator Crider, I know the governor or maybe Representative Eberhart, there is some money already in the budget for broadband expansion. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge issue. This is a priority for, I think, all 3 of us at least,
Right.
For our district and for the state. So there is money in there, and I think it's a priority for the governor. It's a priority for the legislature, and you're going to see some good things happen that come out of this session. So absolutely, there's programs and money in the budget.
And probably the biggest challenge, Senator Crider, that I hear in utilities would be the concern from current providers not being overbuilt. Believe it or not, even though I have many areas that have no access there are some cities and towns that have multiple providers. And so they really don't want to see broadband grant money going to a new competitor that's going to overbuild their areas. So the folks that are in charge of the distribution of the broadband grants, it's got to be a huge issue because they've got to figure that out. And mapping from the federal level has not been good because it was done by census block. And if one person in a census block had broadband, they considered that census block covered. So there's also work now being done. I think our congressman has been working on that issue at the federal level, but there's also some efforts being worked on, I think, at the state level to try to get a better idea of where do we really need the broadband the most.
And I would add just real quick that there's right now there's $250 million in the budget to expand the rural broadband expansion grants. So whether or not that's an appropriate number, I don't know, but that's a significant amount of money that's in the budget right now.
Right, and last year we were excited to have 100 million, right? That the governor found
Right.
from
Yeah.
some red money. So this is substantially an increase.
I think the thing that we heard in testimony yesterday is that just the fact that there is internet within the area does not mean that there's enough bandwidth for a family with 3 or 4 kids and a parent that's also on their iPad doing their business. Essentially, it slows down the internet to the point where it's just not functional. You can't even download a page. And so this is kind of becoming that discussion around the haves and have-nots. And we really have to figure this out because I think we've seen a shift in the way business is being done that may be somewhat permanent. And so we're really seriously trying to figure this thing out.
Okay. The next question, Representative Eberhart, why did you vote against Representative Puff's amendment to House Bill 1001 to continue funding several career and technical programs such as horticulture, cosmetology, and culinary arts? Senator Leising and Senator Crider, I would like to know your support for funding these programs and designated less than moderate value programs. Thank you.
Well, I certainly support those type of programs, and I support those other type of trade programs that we need our folks to have access to. And the budget contains money for those programs. We had probably 50, 60 amendments that we had to deal with that everybody has their thoughts on where we should spend more money. I mean, I had my thoughts on where we should spend more money. But I was comfortable where the budget is now. The budget contains money for programs like that, and in fact, much more than that. And so I was comfortable where the budget was at this point. And again, this budget's going to change. The Senate's going to have their look at it as well. But we all agree that the trade programs that she listed in her question are very important, and students need to have those options. And not everyone's going to go to college, and so I'm very supportive of what she listed there. It's just I was comfortable with what was in the budget at this point in time.
And list the trades again specifically. What were they?
The House Bill 100,
I don't know.
and it was for
No, but what were
the program.
trades?
Oh, horticulture, cosmetology, and culinary arts.
Okay. Well, one thing I would want to tell your listeners is that there is a new program that started 2 years ago that's called the Workforce Ready Grant. That's 100% state funded for anybody. There's 5 different categories, and I am not sure it's through You can take classes at Ivy Tech and whatever. So I would certainly have your listeners take a look at that program. I don't know specifically if each of those things are within that program, but I know that there's everything from manufacturing to transportation to business to healthcare and secretarial kind of things. So I think that, you know, the state is trying to make all kinds of educational opportunities available post high school. And for those folks that are not inclined to want to go to a 4-year college. And I think that the Workforce Ready Grant program has been very underutilized in my view. So I hope those folks that have kids who are interested in something besides 4-year will really take a look at that program. Again, it's called the Workforce Ready Grant Program, and it's doing amazing things for kids that have found it.
Great, thank you. House Bill 1465, speed camera bill, is of particular interest to our construction industry and the safety of workers. Beatty Construction and C-Tech have many employees that are directly affected by this. Can you update us on the status and if we can count on your support of worker safety?
Well, that bill will be up for third and final reading, up for a final vote on Monday. Now that question's a little tricky. Of course, there's none of us that don't agree that safety for our workers and our construction workers are of the utmost importance. The issue here, I think, is something that we need to decide whether we're going to start allowing cameras to basically write tickets instead of police officers. And I think that's the question here. It's not, this bill isn't entirely about safety of workers. It's the underlying issue of whether we think that it's proper policy to have cameras that can give out tickets. And then at that point, are you ticketing the car? Are you ticketing the driver who could quite possibly be somebody different than the owner of the car? So I do have concerns about this bill, but I want folks to understand I certainly have no issue of promoting safety for our construction workers and those folks that are out on the roads, but this is a much bigger issue than that.
Okay.
And we have a similar bill that is also getting a lot of discussion. It has to do with school bus arms. And it would be the same way. It would be your vehicle would actually get the citation by way of camera by your license plate, but you might have let your sister or your husband use your car, but it's going to go against your record. And so these are really tough issues because, as Sean said, it's not that I don't want kids to be safe that ride school buses or workers who are out working on our highways, but we got to figure out individual rights too. So I'm not sure what'll happen with either of those bills, Sean, right now.
Yeah, if the bill is to pass, it likely would be assigned to the committee I chair, and I think Mr. Beatty knows I'm supportive of the concept. I think it does still need some work from what I understand of the House version of the bill, and so I'll do my best to give it a fair consideration if it comes to my committee.
Okay, Senator Crider, your Senate Bill 34 dealing with unlawful assembly seems to go along with many bills this session geared towards deterring peaceful protests. As we saw, peaceful protests can be hijacked, and from this bill seem to allow everyone to be prosecuted if in attendance. Can you talk more about this and the part about how you classify defunding the police?
So in order to keep down the total number of bills that we filed, we had a bill limit for the first time in a long session this session. So several legislators, I think there were probably 6 or 7 bills like this. I was going to file a bill about the issue of bail, of the fact that in Marion County during the riots that occurred, I was concerned by the fact that the prosecutor would not hold somebody on bail. And my law enforcement friends were telling me that they were seeing the same person on the street the next day after they arrested him for some act of breaking windows or whatever they were doing. And so Senator Toms from Evansville area had a broader bill, and I told Legislative Services to add my bill to whatever he was working on so I could reduce the overall number of bills that I was going to file to stay under the 10 bill limit. So we have passed a bill. Senator Mike Young, who chairs the courts and criminal code committee, put together a bill, and it tries to address the issue of bail. It tries to address the issue of I'm trying to think of all the components of it, of groups from outside of a state that come in and finance what are considered to be professional agitators that show up and essentially hijack what is a peaceful protest, which everybody supports. Nobody is against peaceful protest, and certainly not myself. I think what happened in Indianapolis is an absolute tragedy. But what my folks have told me, business owners that I know have told me down there, is they have had their businesses impacted. One jewelry store had almost its entire inventory stolen. One law firm lost $300,000 worth of glass in their building storefront or the building front. And so we have to figure out a way to allow for peaceful expression of opinions about societal issues to happen without having those protests then hijacked by groups who really are there just to loot and cause damage. And so I'm sure the version that the Senate is passing to the House will get a lot of conversation. The bill that Senate Bill 34 did not even get considered. It was filed really in an attempt to be considered along with the other bills as a discussion tool to be used to develop the bill that we see Senator Young has actually moved. It's a big topic. We're not going to see these situations less. We're going to see them more probably. And the reality is it's not, these bills are not targeted towards any demographic. What happened in Indianapolis was a tragedy. What happened in Washington, D.C. was a tragedy. And those kind of activities should not happen. We have to figure out a way to protect our police officers, our public safety officers, and people who are asked to stand in the gap for the rest of us. And we have to protect the business owners in the community so that they don't lose their entire livelihood. And so it's a big discussion. It'll continue to the very end, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Senator Leising, you support Senate Bill 124, which removes the school board's local control over setting the school calendar start date and end dates. What is the need for school start date to be after Labor Day?
Yeah, and that bill has been drastically amended in committee. Senator Cruz authored it, but I did sign on to it, and I have worked on that issue in the past. The bill now that is being sent to the House for further consideration would just request a study of the school start date. Basically, we have shortened this summer by school start dates a lot. So it's impacted negatively all the summer opportunities for kids, whether it's swim teams, baseball, you name it. But it also has had a devastating effect on business who try to hire students in the summer, because in many cases now they might be able to hire a student for 6 weeks and that's about it. And so they don't even know if it's worth it. Our amusement kind of entities in Indiana have been really harmed. Holiday World in Southwestern Indiana would be a good example where they actually, they've had to shorten their season. Many of their employees are in fact students, and it's just not gone well. And the reality is that we also hear from parents who say, for my kids to have a 2-week fall break or a 2-week spring break and 2 or 3 weeks at Christmas, which is happening in a lot of school districts, it's just causing a lot of childcare issues. Okay. Parents would rather see less time at those different breaks. Then there's a debate about whether there's a learning loss for extended breaks. And so there's a lot of issues involved. And, the reality is we have the day requirement, the number of days, the 180-day requirement. And right now it is totally up to a school district how to achieve that 180 days. And there's a lot of folks who have put together calendars that would still give kids an 8 or 10 week summer, still make the 180 days. But I think it'll be interesting to see what the study committee comes up with when they look at all the different sides of this issue. The shorter summer has a devastating economic impact on our state. And for the people, I can tell you that are of the northern part of our state, Michigan doesn't go back to school until after Labor Day. And so they've got all kinds of folks that struggle up in that area because of it. So anyway, it's an interesting issue. And I'll be honest, the legislature never likes to take away anything that's local control. And people have been trying to decide why there was this movement to go to the shorter summers for kids. I mean, there were a lot of teachers, very frankly, that used to pick up part-time jobs at camp facilities. And, whether it's Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, State Fair, you name it. I could go on and on, that really think that the shorter summer thing hasn't been good. So we'll see what the study committee comes up with. Thank you for asking.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask one more question, but I want everybody to know you've posted so many good comments in the chat. We'll make sure that all 3 of them get these comments and they can look over them. Your voice is important. They want to know your concerns. They want to know what you're watching. So we'll make sure that they get all of the chat text and all of the emails. But this last question, I will tell you folks, there has been a lot of chatter in here about the solar energy. So I'm going to end on that. And Shelby County has been very outspoken on the solar farms that are looking in our area. The House bill that was presented this week, and Mr. Eberhart voted for it. There seems to be a strong voice in Shelby County that is against it. I know you explained to us why you were in favor of it, but if you want to talk any more about that, Sean, you can. And the other thing, they want to know what Senator Leising thinks about it, and Crider.
Well, yeah, I understand there are people against. There's people in favor of the solar development as well. So let's not forget there are 2 sides to it. I think this leads to a larger discussion on, where private property rights start and end. Some would argue that you should have a right to do what you wish with your property, within reason, of course. But you've got that discussion as opposed to the concerns that I've heard from others, which is devaluing their property and those sort of arguments. So I think it's again, one reason I voted for this was to keep this discussion going, because I think it's important that we have it, not only about the balance between property rights, but also our total energy grid and distribution system in general. And so I supported the bill. I'm not saying it wasn't a wholeheartedly yes vote, but it was a yes vote to continue the discussion, knowing that it was going to receive that in the Senate. So again, it's going to come back to us. If it even moves over in the Senate, it'll eventually come back to us, and we'll have a chance to discuss it and take another vote on it. So it's far from over.
Okay.
I would just say that it's going to be an interesting discussion in the Senate Utilities. I'm assuming that the bill, Sean, will probably get a hearing. That'll be up to Senator Cook, who chairs the Utilities Committee. Your vote in the House, 58-38. Okay. Now, what I would tell you, out of my 7 counties, I have what I'd call solar fights going on in at least 4 of the 7 counties. Okay. But when I say fights, there are fights on both sides of the issue. As Sean mentioned, there's a fight on the side of the property owner. Okay. If you're a farmer that's retiring or thinking about retiring, and you can get $900 to $1,200 an acre for your solar panels, compared to maybe 200, or maybe if you have really good ground, 300 cash rent, because you don't any longer want to farm your ground, that would say, oh gosh, from a monetary standpoint, that's an easy decision. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you my concerns on the other side is in regard to the issue of those neighbors and their rights, also. So I think, Sean, that your bill has some setback language in it. And Sean, can you say it does? Does it have some setback language, do you think, from property line?
Yes, it does include setback language and other requirements that would have to be part of an ordinance. So they're trying to reach a balance with sound limits, project timelines as far as how quickly a project has to move, so there's not so much waiting. And there's other provisions that are in the bill. So yeah, I know that's not going to satisfy everyone, but there are some provisions in there.
Well, one of the things that concerns me, Sean, is that, and I haven't seen the bill now that it's passed the House, and I will probably be seeing it in the next week or two. But I would say, the concern that I have for the property owner that's eager to sign a $1,200 contract versus a $200 cash rent contract, is that person looking at the contract closely enough currently to know what's going to happen when those solar panels age out and they have to be removed? Is the person signing that contract aware, of the cost of the removal? And then is the county going to be on the hold for that if the person that owns the property at that time can't do it? And I think all of those issues, I think that some of the bonding issues, Sean, might also, and the cleanup, there's a fancy word for it, I'm not sure what it's called, the removal of the panels, or if maybe, who would have ever dreamed that solar panels would be an issue 10 years ago, right? So 10 years from now, will solar panels be an issue? I mean, I just got an email from one of my constituents that showed snow on solar panels in Germany and frozen wind turbines. And this was last week before the Texas thing, right? And apparently Germany's struggling. And I know that Germany, for instance, wants to be totally renewable by 2030, okay? I don't think we want in Indiana to be totally renewable, or even to have too high a percentage of renewables, okay? I think that's something that we all need to make sure that we have reliability of our electric sources. And, You know, I can tell you when I was first on the utility committee, Sean, when I came back in the 2009 session, I think we were still about 90% coal generation. And Sean, you probably would have heard this number maybe in your discussions in the House, but I think we're now down to 50 to 60% coal generation. Does that sound correct to you, Sean? Do you know?
Yeah, that number's dropped significantly, and that's the reason that the discussion on renewables needs to continue. Is coal's eventually going to disappear. I'm a big coal fan, don't get me wrong. I chair the Natural Resources Committee, and we deal with coal issues. I'm a huge coal fan, and I want to ride that train as long as it lasts. But at the same time, we've got to have some other discussions. And so again, this bill's going to have a lot of eyes on it. There's going to be a lot of discussion. I know Senator Crider's interested in this as well. So it's not going to happen overnight. So I wouldn't be too concerned about this. I'm glad you have the concerns, because you folks are very interested in it, but this has a long way to go.
Well, and just one last thing. I mean, the whole issue of natural gas, because that is where probably has got the bigger share, since coal has not been a biggest percentage. And we don't know where the cost of natural gas is going if there's pressure at the federal level on fracking. And so we all, besides wanting reliability and making sure that when we turn our lights on, that they in fact come on, but we also have to be able to pay for our electricity. So it is not an easy issue. And I've always been a big coal fan. So this is all, I struggle with this change. Senator Crider, add some wisdom to this discussion.
So I'm kind of fortunate in that the planned projects don't fall within my district, so I don't think I get quite as much mail as most folks do. But I tend to be philosophically more supportive of solar than I am of wind, simply because of the amount of wildlife that's killed in those wind turbines. And so the thing that folks don't talk about very much is the fact that wind turbines they're full of oil, and there's all kinds of byproducts that are created with those things. And so the solar fields, there's an entity called MISO, which is a regional transmission trading organization. And if you ever have an opportunity to go there, it's fascinating. But with all the renewables that are out there, in Indiana, the renewable portion is still around 1%. We're not producing enough energy using those methods to do anything really to shift the consumption of electricity that direction. And so this will be a topic we're watching pretty closely. I have a lot of confidence in Senator Cook, who served for years as a utility chairman in the House before he was elected to the Senate. He's a very thoughtful person, and Senator Mesmer is also on this bill. They will give it the attention that it needs, and I'm hopeful that as the rest of us are engaged in conversations, we'll get the bill where it really needs to be before it leaves the Senate, if it leaves the Senate.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap that up. We went a little bit longer than what I thought we might go. You guys, you did a great job answering all those questions. Thank you so much. Senator Crider, Senator Leising, and Representative Eberhart, thank you so much. We'll have you back with another legislative update. I believe the date is April the 27th. It's a Friday, and it will be at noon. So watch for your emails, and we'll send you the Zoom link, or maybe we can meet in person like that was mentioned early. That would be wonderful. So everyone, have a great weekend. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you in April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for participating.